My name is Olivia Moore, and I used to think family was supposed to be your safe place. Now I know it's just where the knives are kept. I grew up in a small town outside Minneapolis. My parents were the kind of people who believed in appearances, neat lawns, polite smiles, Christmas cards sent on time. We weren't rich, but we looked like we were doing fine. And maybe that was the problem. Everything we had was just an illusion of fine. Then there was Grace, my younger sister. If I was the quiet one, she was the storm. If I followed rules, she wrote her own. Even when we were kids, she had that way of turning every mistake into a story that somehow made her the victim, and me the boring one who never loosened up. I used to cover for her. When she took money from Mom's purse, I said I did it. When she crashed Dad's car, I lied and said I was driving. Because that's what good sisters do, right? They protect each other, even when it hurts. After college, I got a stable job at a logistics company downtown. Grace dropped out after a semester and started drifting. Waitress 1 month, makeup artist the next, always chasing something she never defined. She'd show up at my apartment sometimes, smiling too wide, asking for a little help to get her through. And I always helped, because family means you don't say no. She'd call me Saint Olivia. It was a joke, but every joke has a little truth in it. And behind her laughter, I always felt the sting of resentment. Things started to change the year I turned 31. Mom got sick, early-stage cancer. Suddenly, Grace came back around, acting like she was the dutiful daughter. She brought flowers, cooked dinners, took pictures with Mom for social media. And people loved it. Grace has really matured, they said. Meanwhile, I was the one handling the hospital bills, the appointments, the paperwork. The invisible labor no one claps for. When Mom passed, Grace made a speech at the funeral that made everyone cry. She said, "My sister's always been my rock." I believed her. I really did. I didn't realize it was the beginning of my undoing. A few months later, Grace called and said she'd found a new apartment. She needed someone to co-sign the lease since her credit was a little messy. She promised to handle all the payments herself. And against my better judgment, I said yes. I told myself it was just one more favor. One last time. Because sisters do that. They give and give and give until they forget where the line was supposed to be. She moved in, thanked me 100 times, and for a while, everything seemed fine. She even got a steady job at a salon, started posting about new beginnings. I remember feeling proud, like maybe she'd finally found her footing. I was wrong. The first red flag came in the mail, a credit card bill I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then another letter arrived. "Congratulations on your new car loan." Only I didn't have a new car. I called the bank. They said the loan was under my name, my address, my social security number. When I told Grace, she acted confused. "Maybe it's a glitch," she said, laughing nervously. "I've had weird stuff like that happen too." Her tone was light, but her eyes, they flickered, like a lie trying not to blink. I tried to believe her, because believing her was easier than believing the alternative, that my own sister could be stealing from me. A week later, I got an email from HR at work. They said there'd been a security concern involving my personal accounts. Someone had applied for unemployment under my name. While I was still working there, they were investigating. That's when panic started crawling up my throat. I called Grace again. No answer. I texted her. No reply. 2 days passed before she finally called back. "Liv, calm down," she said. "You always overreact. It's probably some scammer. Relax." Her voice was smooth, too smooth. And for the first time in my life, it scared me. The next morning, I checked my credit report. Accounts I didn't recognize. Addresses I'd never lived at. A credit score that had fallen off a cliff. And then I saw it. A new driver's license issued in my name. The photo was recent. The woman in the picture looked like me. Same hair, same face. But not me. It was Grace. My blood turned to ice. I stared at the screen, trying to breathe, trying to understand. She hadn't just borrowed my name. She'd become me. I drove to her apartment that night, the one I co-signed. The door was locked, lights off. I pounded on it until my hands hurt. No answer. Then I saw something, an envelope taped to the door. It was addressed to Olivia Moore, my name. Inside was a utility bill, my sister's apartment, under my identity. I remember standing there in the hallway, surrounded by that quiet hum of bad fluorescent light, realizing how stupid I'd been. Every favor, every just this once. Every time I said, "She's just struggling." It had all been practice. She'd been learning how to live as me for years. The next day, my debit card got declined. The bank said my account had been emptied. When I asked where the money went, the teller said it was transferred to your sister, to Olivia Moore. That's when I stopped trying to explain, because how do you tell someone that your sister stole your face, your name, your life, and the world believed her instead? Tania, I went to my parents' house that night, looking for answers. Dad barely looked up from his chair. When I told him, he said, "Grace wouldn't do that. You've always been jealous of her." Jealous. That word hit me harder than any truth could, because that's the story Grace had always told. The good sister who had everything, and the jealous one who couldn't stand it. They believed her. Of course they did. Because she smiled prettier, cried louder, played innocent better. I left before I said something I'd regret. And when I got home, my power was out. My utilities unpaid. Under the new Olivia Moore. Tatadain. That night, sitting in the dark, I realized something I should have known long ago. You don't lose your identity when someone steals your name. You lose it the moment you let them convince you you're less than them. And I had let her do that all my life, so I made a promise. I was going to find her, and I was going to take my life back, piece by piece, name by name, until there was nothing left for her to pretend to be. Because Grace didn't just steal my identity. She stole my silence, and I was done being quiet. When people talk about identity theft, they picture credit cards, passwords, or stolen emails. They never talk about what it's like when the thief has your smile. The day after my accounts were frozen, I woke up to find myself erased. The world didn't see Olivia Moore anymore. Not the real one. Grace had already taken the stage. It started small. Emails bounced back. My phone carrier said my number was transferred successfully. When I tried to log in to my work account, it said the password had been changed. Then I got an alert from my insurance company. Your address has been updated. The new address was hers. I sat there in my kitchen, holding my phone, realizing that every system that knew me now knew her instead. And there was no one to call, because the name Olivia Moore already had a voice, and it wasn't mine. I went to the police that afternoon. I remember the officer's face, polite, distracted, probably younger than me. He asked if I'd shared my information with anyone. I said, "Yes, my sister." He sighed. "Family cases are complicated," he said. I asked, "What do I do?" He handed me a pamphlet titled "Steps to Reclaim Your Identity." It was 12 pages long, but none of them said what to do when the person stealing your life shares your blood. Days blurred together. Bills arrived in her name in my mailbox. Calls from collection agencies, letters from lawyers. The world thought I was everywhere. New cars, new jobs, even a small business registered under my name. But I wasn't anywhere. I was a ghost haunting the life I used to live. I tried reaching Grace again. Every message went unread. Until one day, a notification popped up on my old Facebook page. Olivia Moore has posted new photos. There she was, in my clothes, at my favorite coffee shop, tagging my old coworkers, smiling my smile. The caption said, "Finally living the life I deserve." Titiona. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone. I called her, no answer. I messaged her, "Why are you doing this?" She replied, "Stop pretending, Liv. Everyone knows who the real Olivia is now." I stared at that message for hours, trying to make sense of the madness. But deep down, I understood. Grace wasn't pretending to be me because she wanted my life. She was doing it because she wanted to erase hers. I called our father. He said, "Grace told me you're sick, that you're imagining things." Imagining. That word hurt more than betrayal because it made me invisible. When people think you're crazy, they stop listening. And that's how you disappear, not by vanishing, but by being doubted. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop, searching for proof of who I used to be. Photos, emails, work records, all gone, deleted, replaced by her. Even my old driver's license renewal request had been completed. The system showed my new address, hers, with a signature that looked exactly like mine. Perfect loops, perfect lies. I printed every document I could find, spread them across the table like pieces of a broken mirror. And for the first time, I stopped crying. Because crying didn't make sense anymore. You can't mourn someone who's still alive. The next morning, I went to my job, or what used to be my job. When I scanned my badge, the guard stopped me. "Sorry, ma'am, you're not on file." I laughed. "That's impossible." He checked again. Olivia Moore was terminated last week. I stood there in the lobby where I'd spent 6 years of my life, watching strangers pass me by, wondering if they could see the panic under my skin. They didn't. To them, I was just another face, forgettable, replaceable. Later that day, my former coworker texted me, "I didn't know you were starting your own company. Congrats." Attached was a screenshot, a business website, my photo, my name, but Grace's address. I scrolled through the page, and there it was. Owner Olivia Moore, founder of More Creative Solutions. It was her, pretending to be me, building something new with my credentials, my reputation, my stolen life. That's when I realized this wasn't chaos. It was choreography. She had planned every step. Itatahiwi, I went home and opened my old family photos, the ones with both of us in them, and for the first time I noticed how similar we looked. Same cheekbones, same smile. All she had to do was dye her hair and mimic my tone. The world wouldn't know the difference. They didn't care to. I started taking notes, names, dates, documents, every time I found a new piece of her deception. I bought a small recorder, started keeping logs. If the world didn't believe me, I'd build proof myself. But it wasn't proof I needed. It was a plan. Weeks passed, my savings dwindled. I slept on a friend's couch after the landlord said I'd moved out. Grace had called the property manager, pretending to be me, canceled my lease, and transferred the deposit to her account. She was dismantling my life one signature at a time. I confronted her again. I found her outside a salon where she worked, under my name. She looked startled for a moment, then smiled. "Olivia," she said sweetly, "you look terrible." "Give me my life back." She tilted her head. "Your life? You mean the one you wasted working for people who never cared? The one you used to brag about like it made you better than me?" I felt something inside me snap. This isn't jealousy, Grace. It's theft. She leaned closer, whispering, "You don't deserve that name. You don't deserve anything." Before I could reply, she turned and walked away. And I stood there, realizing that she didn't hate me for what I had. She hated me for what I represented: stability, recognition, proof that we came from the same family but turned out different. That night, I tried calling the police again. A different officer answered. When I explained, he said, "Ma'am, do you have evidence that your sister is using your identity?" I said, "She's living in my apartment, using my name, working under my credentials." He paused. "Then you'll need to hire a lawyer." A lawyer, because apparently justice costs extra. One morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "You can stop now, Liv. No one believes you." I deleted it, but the chill stayed. Then came the final blow. I received a letter from a debt collector. Balance due $48,750. It was a business loan, in my name, approved under forged documents, my digital signature attached. Grace had borrowed tens of thousands of dollars pretending to be me. I stared at the letter, and for the first time, I laughed. Not the kind of laugh that feels good. The kind that sounds like something breaking. She hadn't just stolen my identity. She'd buried me under hers. I went to my father again. He wouldn't open the door. Through the crack, I heard him say, "Grace told us everything. You need help." Help. That word echoed in my head as I walked away. By then, I understood. The hardest part of being erased isn't losing what you have. It's watching everyone you love pretend they don't see it happening. Fetitin Turkey. I sold my car to pay for a lawyer. Her name was Dana Wells, and she was the first person who didn't look at me like I was insane. She said, "I've seen this before. Not often, but it happens." People don't want to believe that family can be predators. She started filing the paperwork, told me it might take months. I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. Cold, fragile, but real. She said, "If you want to win this, you'll need to fight like hell. They'll question everything you say. You'll have to prove who you are." I nodded. I've been proving who I am my entire life. One night, I checked Grace's social media again. She'd posted a photo, sitting in a restaurant, laughing, holding a champagne glass. The caption read, "Success tastes better when you've earned it." Underneath were comments from old friends, family, even coworkers of mine. "So proud of you, Liv. You deserve it. Always knew you'd make it." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared, thinking, this is what erasure looks like. Applause for the person who replaced you. When I turned off the phone, the apartment felt too quiet, too small, too gone. I opened the window, breathing in the cold night air. Somewhere out there, she was living the life I built. But somewhere deeper, something inside me shifted. The fear was gone. The grief had burned itself out. What was left was fire. She wanted to be me. She wanted my name, my life, my story. Fine. I'd give her a story she'd never forget. People think reclaiming your identity means paperwork, signatures, passwords. They never mention the part where you have to convince the world you still exist. The first time I met with my lawyer, Dana slid a stack of forms across her desk. "Every system has to see proof you're you," she said. I looked at the papers, my name printed neatly on every page, and thought, even the proof looks like a lie. We started the slow crawl through bureaucracy, police reports, affidavits, credit bureaus. Every call began the same. "Can I speak to Olivia Moore?" When I said, "This is she," they'd answer, "I'm sorry, ma'am, you've already called about this." But I hadn't. She had. Grace was everywhere, like mold, spreading through the cracks of my old life. I learned to record everything. Emails, screenshots, receipts. I built a timeline, a case, a map of my own disappearance. Dana called it documentation. I called it survival. Each night I'd sit at my kitchen table, surrounded by evidence. My handwriting beside hers, identical loops, perfect mimicry. It made me realize how fragile identity really is. It isn't who you are, it's what people agree to call you. The turning point came when a reporter contacted me. She was writing an article about domestic identity fraud. Somehow she'd heard about my case. She said, "Do you want to tell your story?" I almost said no. But then I thought of Grace, smiling for photos, posting lies. "Yes," I said, "I do." When the article went live, it spread fast. Sister steals woman's identity and future. People started calling, messaging, apologizing for not believing me. My coworkers, my neighbors, even my father. He left a voicemail. "I'm sorry, Liv, we were wrong." But I didn't call back. Apologies don't unburn what's already ash. Grace, of course, reacted. She posted a video online, crying, saying I was mentally unstable. Her followers comforted her. The comments were brutal. "You can't believe everything you read." "She's jealous of her sister." "She just wants attention." For 2 days I didn't eat. Then I realized every lie she told was one more chance for me to show the truth. And I had the receipts. I uploaded screenshots, contracts, the forged driver's license, side-by-side comparisons of our signatures. The internet turned. For the first time, people saw her the way I'd always seen her. Charming on the surface, poisonous underneath. Dana filed a civil suit. Identity theft, defamation, fraud. Grace didn't show up to the first hearing or the second, but she couldn't hide forever. Eventually, the police found her in Nevada, trying to open another account under my name. She was arrested. When Dana told me, I didn't feel triumphant, just empty. Victory feels quieter than people think. The court process dragged on for months. Grace's defense was predictable. She blamed me, said I'd given her permission, that I'd always handled her finances. The prosecutor asked, "Did you give your sister your driver's license?" I said, "No." He asked, "Your social security number?" "No." He said, "Then how did she get it?" I looked at him and answered, "She watched me trust her." The courtroom fell silent. During cross-examination, Grace finally looked at me. Her eyes were the same color as mine, same shape, same lashes, but they were hollow. She said, "You had everything. I just wanted a chance." I whispered, "You had me. That should have been enough." She looked away. When the verdict came, it was short. Guilty on all counts. Restitution ordered. Probation, community service. It wasn't justice, but it was something. Fati'an. Afterward, reporters waited outside. One asked, "What will you do now that you've won?" I said, "Winning would mean getting my old life back. That's gone. I'm just making sure she doesn't get to keep it." Tinktatua. For months, I kept rebuilding. One call at a time, one form at a time, one sleepless night at a time. Slowly, my accounts reopened. My credit rose. My name began to mean me again. But something had changed. The old Olivia was gone. The one who said yes to everything, who thought kindness could fix people. This new version was quieter, harder, unapologetically real. Twine. One evening, I opened my laptop and found a new message request. From Grace. It said, "You won. I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a while, then typed back, "I didn't win. I survived." And I hit send. The next morning, the sun felt different. Warmer, maybe. Or maybe it was me. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and for the first time in years, there was no noise in my head, no fear, no guilt, no pretending, just silence, my silence, and it was mine again. They say once you get your identity back, life goes back to normal. But what they don't tell you is, there's no normal left. You can't return to a life that someone else already lived for you. Fitai. When the dust finally settled, I had everything again. My credit, my job, my name on paper. But paper doesn't remember the nights you cried over it. It doesn't remember how it felt to be erased. Grace was gone, probation, no contact order. I thought I'd feel peace. Instead, there was only quiet, the kind that hums inside you when the noise has nowhere else to go. For months, I avoided mirrors, because every time I saw my own reflection, I saw her too. We had the same face, after all. She'd worn it longer than I ever had. Tikuldo. The first person who called me Olivia again was a stranger, a barista. He handed me my coffee and said, "For Olivia?" I nodded, and for some reason my throat closed. It was such a simple word, but it belonged to me again. Later, I walked past a store window and caught my reflection. For once, I didn't look away. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd lost everything. She was sharper, quieter, and finally whole. Dad tried to reach out once. He said he wanted to talk. I met him for coffee. He looked smaller, older, worn by guilt. He said, "I should have believed you." I said, "You believed the louder one. Most people do." He nodded, tears in his eyes. I didn't hate him. I just didn't need him anymore. Forgiveness isn't about kindness. It's about freedom. And I was finally free. I started working with Dana on a volunteer project, helping other victims of identity fraud, mostly women, mostly betrayed by someone close. Every story started the same. I trusted them. Every story ended the same. I wish I hadn't. I'd tell them, you can lose everything, your money, your name, your home, and still find yourself again, because who you are isn't what they took, it's what you rebuild. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I read through the old files, the fake IDs, the signatures, the screenshots. I keep them not as evidence, but as reminders. Proof that survival isn't something you get, it's something you become. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail, no return address. Inside a single piece of paper, "I'm sorry, you were right." Grace. I folded it once and placed it in a drawer, not because I forgave her, but because I didn't need her apology to move on. You can't rebuild a bridge that was never real. Months later, I moved to a new city. New job, new apartment. On the lease, under name of tenant, I wrote Olivia Moore. And when I handed it back to the landlord, I smiled. Small, calm, certain. Because I knew exactly who that was now. Life became quiet again, but it was a good kind of quiet. Morning coffee, long walks, a few friends who knew the truth. No drama, no pretending, just me. Sometimes people ask if I miss her, Grace, and I say, no, I miss the version of her I made up. Because that's what love does. It turns red flags into fairy lights until everything looks safe. The last time I saw her was by accident, 2 years later at a grocery store. She looked older, tired, her cart half empty, eyes down. For a second, she didn't see me. And for that second, I saw her as a stranger and felt nothing. When she finally looked up, I smiled. Not warmly, just enough. Then I turned away, because sometimes closure doesn't come with words. It comes with silence. Fetentam. That night, I sat by my window, the city lights stretching far beyond what I used to call home. I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd rebuilt with my own hands. And I realized something simple, something small but true. Grace took my identity, but she gave me something I never had before, a reason to find out who I really was. So I keep a photo of myself now, just me, no one else in the frame. Not as a warning, but as proof. Proof that you can be replaced, copied, erased, and still exist. Because names can be stolen, faces can be faked, but peace has fingerprints, and these ones are mine. I used to think being a sister meant protecting her. Now I know it meant protecting myself from her. She took my identity, but she never took me.